You may have seen the walkthrough of this. If not, it'll be linked below so that you can see the ins and outs of this adorable book that is designed to look like a beach bag or a beach purse. Anyway, the inspiration for this project was the Creative Memories Chasing the Sun papers, and so that's where I got my inspiration. So I used envelopes that coordinate colors with all of this. Now what I did, so it is an accordion envelope album. That's what the inside is, and then within that envelope accordion piece, as you see here, we have panels or photo mats. So you pull your photo mat out, and that is where you'd put your photos or your journaling and so forth. So there's 10 of those. That's the way I did it. Now you can do it exactly as I did, or you can even come up with your own size, and I'm going to show you how you would do that. And then I've got tags in there too, you can write on and so forth. And I just wanted to make it fun with all of the different ribbons, colors of ribbons and everything. And that also is why I chose multicolored envelopes. So I have purple and red and yellow and pink and orange. Well, no, I don't have orange. I have purple, pink, yellow, and red. 4 different colors. But so you could do this type of project with any color of envelopes and any size. I wanted to do the envelope that fits 5 by 7 cards. So as you know, then that is, let me grab my glasses here. I don't know why I thought I could film and look at things without my glasses. So anyway, that then makes the envelope. So I already trimmed the top off of there, but it's going to make your envelopes a little bit over that. So this is like 5 1/4, and then in width it's 7 1/4. So 7 1/4 by 5 1/4, so that you can fit your 5 by 7 cards in there. And that's what the size I decided to go with. But again, you could use different size envelopes. You could use any color you wanted based on the theme of what you're going to make. So the way I figured out the size for my template is I took a plain sheet of cardstock. It could really be any color because it's just going to be your template like this. So what I did is I took my cards and I laid them down, my envelopes, and I laid them down about where I thought I would want it positioned, at least the left and the top part. So I want a little bit of a lip here, and then I need a much wider lip there because I want this kind of an angle like this. So what I did is I just went ahead and laid it on there, and like I said, you could do this with any size then, just following these same principles. So we'll lay our envelopes there, and then go ahead and draw. We're going to draw a bottom line where the envelopes start on the bottom, because we don't want any kind of a lip there. We want that right up against the bottom. See what I mean? Because you want your envelopes to sit on the spine. And then what I did is I just made like a little slant or a little line right there where the envelopes end. So what you end up with then is you end up with the bottom of the envelopes drawn, and then where the left side starts and where the right side ends. So that's what you end up with. And then what we need to do is take our ruler, and we know we want to go from the corner down to here, down to the bottom where our envelopes are going to start on this side. So we want a little angle there, and we'll go ahead and draw that. And we're going to cut on the outside of that. And it's okay that the pencil's going to show because this is just our template for us, so we don't care about that. And then we can either go ahead and draw a similar, because it doesn't have to be, you know, this is handmade. We don't have to like get out anything crazy to make sure it's the same angle here as it is there. It's going to look pretty consistent, but if you wanted to, you could. What you can do, so you don't go too far astray, is after you cut this piece out, then flip this one over and you know it's going to work on that side. I'll show you what I mean. So what we want to do now is go ahead and cut across the bottom. And this is pretty much right on because our envelopes were up against there. And you can just keep on cutting there because we're going to get to that side later. Then go ahead, and you actually want that to start at the point. I might not have drawn my line perfectly. There we go. So that's our angle. And then we can start this one out. Let's see, it went that way or that. It went up. That's the bottom, so it went that way. And then we can flip it over, and that'll at least get us started. Well, we'd want that square, wouldn't we? Because it came out. Yep. See what I mean? So then you could go ahead and get yourself started with that, and then finish it with your roller. Like that. And so then we'll cut that side out. And then we have our template. And that will work for our front cover and our back cover because they're going to be the same size. This is going to be for our front and back, and then for our spine, all I did was I measured the width of the envelopes together, and I gave it a little bit of leeway, not much though, you don't want to give it too much leeway. And I think it came out to like 1/4 of an inch. I got to look again. Actually, so it looks like it's 1/4 and an 1/8. Yeah, it looks like it's 1/4 and an 1/8. Okay, you mathematicians know what that is, but that's the way I measure. All right, and so let's set these aside. I'm going to show you how I prepare my envelopes because that's what we want to do. We want to go ahead and prepare our envelopes, and then we'll make our cover. This is probably the most labor-intensive part. Not that it's really that hard, but you know, this is where a lot of your work comes in, is putting these envelopes together to make our accordion style. If you'll notice, you have, and I have another one here I can show you. If you noticed, you've got some space. That's what makes that accordion work. So see how even they are? And I'm going to show you how to get that. You would not want them glued. Look, if you put them like that together, you're not going to get an accordion style. They have to have enough give there to be able to work. Let me take, I'm going to take an extra one here. Is this the one? Yeah, that's the one I had. Okay. So this one I didn't prepare. All the other ones are already prepared, and we'll get into that in a second. So you're going to this is going to be your envelopes to start out. You're going to have 10 of these, well, or however many you want. I wanted 10. So I have 10 of these, and then you can have different shapes too. But the important thing is we are going to close this flap. One important thing too, hopefully my glue will start here for me. You know, another important thing is you want to get down into that starting point. And then just bring your glue up and around where there's already a glue line, and then again down into there. That's the most important part. You could, if you were so inclined, you could take a wet sponge, damp sponge, not wet, damp sponge, and you could just wet this, and then of course it's going to seal. But you would still need to add some adhesive here and here, and I'll show you why in a minute. So anyway, let's go ahead. We're going to close that up, and you're going to do that with all of your envelopes. So the reason I emphasize you want to get this little piece down is because from the manufacturer, they are not down. See that? So you would think, oh, I could use this side up because from the manufacturer it should already be down. It's not. So you're going to want to use your side that you sealed, you're going to want up because you know you've got these little phalange parts or little edges all the way down. And that's important. Let me show you on my, this is my prototype. So don't ignore it. It's not, I mean, ignore it. It's not that fancy. It was my prototype to experiment. But some of these, see how that is not glued down that great? So that would flap open like that, and we don't want that. So we want to make sure they're glued down very well. And then the next thing you're going to do, so after you glue that down, the next thing you're going to do is we need to make an opening because we have no openings yet. These are going to be our pockets. So I take my Creative Memories trimmer. It's got my phone number on it. Let me block that out. I forgot about that. Okay, I'm back. Not that I mind any of y'all calling me. That would be just fine, but I don't need any more scammers calling me than I already have. You know how that goes. All right, so we just want to take that we want to slice it off there as thin as possible so that we have an opening again without taking much of the envelope away. And you want to notice where you're doing it because you want them all to be consistent. So you want to cut them all at the exact same place. What I found with this one was with my 5-inch ones that are 5 1/4. If I just back that up 1/16. I'm sorry, take that back. If I back it up just 1/16 of an inch from the 5 1/4. And then you can, look on here to make sure they're lined up because I found some of the envelopes were not completely straight. Then you're just going to take that very edge off. So see, you're just taking a 1/16 of an inch off. And what you end up with, I'm going to do something with these. Where are they? After I cut a whole bunch of them, look what you get. Isn't that cool? I'm like, I want to do something with this. It kind of reminds me when they were overlapping like that of like those 1950s, 1960s designs that have the sticks. You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, I thought that was so pretty. I got to do something with that. All right, so we've got our top cut back open. And this is what you'll have. And remember, we cut it on the overlapping one, the one that we glued down. So what you're going to do with everything except the front one, so this is our front one, and then this is our back one. I'm going to put this one in between. But you don't do anything with your front one yet. We'll go ahead and lay that one down. And then we start working on all of these. So you'll have your pile like this, and remember to keep oriented to where you've got your tops. Make sure you remember that your tops are facing up. Have them all facing up, because if not, yeah, there we go. I wanted to make sure, because if not, you're not going to have a opening, a pocket. Your opening will be on the bottom, and you're not going to be able to use it. Okay, so now that we've got that, we're going to go ahead and start. And you're going to flip it over. That's what we're going to glue to here. And so we want to mark, and this is so important. This is the most important part of getting the accordion look, that nice even accordion look. For this size of envelope, I am going to go in a half. I am going to go in a 1/2 of an inch and mark it. Then over here, from this side, I'm going to go in a 1/2 an inch, and I'm going to mark it. If you are using smaller envelopes, you could go maybe a 1/4 of an inch. But for these larger envelopes, I want enough give, so I'm going in a 1/2 an inch on each side. Then what you're going to do, the top and bottom, you can go as far up top and as far down the bottom as you want, but you're not going to go cross your parameter there. So let me show you what I mean. We're going to take our tape, and I use thinner, but you could use 1/2 inch tape. The size of the tape doesn't matter. But what you're going to do is take a piece and just tear it off, and you are going to put that on the inside. the inside of that pencil mark. You don't want any adhesive past that, because that's what gives us our give and makes that accordion style. So tear that off, and again, it doesn't matter if you go all the way down to the bottom or the top, but we want to go on the inside of that pencil mark. Most important point of all. Then when you do the bottom, you can go all the way down to the bottom, but you want it to still be within that parameter. Let's do this. So you don't want to go any adhesive past this anywhere, or you'll lose that give, that flexibility. And I'm going to have to get another piece. So that is how you do this part. So you're going to do that for the rest of the inside envelopes. And through the magic of YouTube, okay, that's going to go on there. Magic of YouTube, these are already done. So we've got all of these already done, and that's how we're going to stick all these together. And then, of course, for our front and our back, we're going to completely adhere that. So that's going to get, your front and your back are going to get completely adhered to the front cover and the back cover. So they get secured down all together. So we could put that tape on there, but we're not going to take the tape off of the front ones yet. And I'll go ahead and use the larger tape. And it can go all the way to the edge and all the way to the top. In fact, you want it to. You want this to be as strong of a hold as possible, because that's what's going to keep your accordion connected to your cover. I'm not very good at judging how much of this to tear off, as you can plainly see. But we don't need any give there, so that can go all the way. And then we can go ahead and put some in the middle too. Just really get this adhered down well. All right, you saw that. I'll go ahead and speed up putting it on our back piece. So we're just going to flip this over. That's going to be the piece that gets adhered to the back cover. Now that I've demonstrated how really awful I am at judging the size to tear, we can go back to the beginning. All right, we're not going to take this off yet. We're going to connect all of our other envelopes first. So leave your tape on there. And let's see, I really need to flip this over because this has to go on there. So I'll just take this. I have this here. We are going to take our tape off. We're going to make sure, I mean, you know, you cut your outer flap is where you cut all your tops. So as long as you're sure that, you can double check yourself that way, or you can just, before you go and put this on, just double check that you have an opening. Because again, I mean, I guess you could take something and cut an opening if you made that mistake, but it's easier to just try to avoid it. And I'm going to show you a couple of these, and then we'll go ahead and speed that up too, with the magic of YouTube. All right, so we're just going to take this, and then we're going to make sure we match up the edges there. Make sure it all matches up, and then just put it down. Okay, and same thing here. I might need to flip one of them over, which it doesn't matter when we get to the end, because it just matters that they're all connected and that the front and the back are going to adhere to the covers. Okay, so I'll just keep on going. You see what I'm doing now. Alright, now as you can see, I need to put tape on this one or this one so that they go together. I don't think it matters which one, but we need to I'll put it on this one. My ruler, so we want to make sure we stick with our 1/2 inch rule there. We want 1/2 inch here and 1/2 inch here. And of course, pencil marks don't matter because these aren't going to show. You know, that part of the envelope is not going to show at all. I don't know if I could do it a little bit neater this time with the tape. Probably not. We'll give it a whirl though, just for the fun of it. And I've noticed, so this is like not my usual, it's kind of an off-brand that I got on Amazon. And sometimes the tape part sticks to my finger and pulls off before I even get it down, which is not good. Hey, look at me measuring that better. I guess I could have done that all along. I tend to get, I don't know if you're like me, I tend to get, like I get so excited about the project I'm working on, and then I just want to get in a hurry to get it done, to have my vision come to light. At least that's how I am. I don't know if anybody else is like that. There we go. Okay. And then this one, and then all our envelopes will be nicely together. Just put a little piece there. I have my awl out because that's how we make the holes for our little handles. All right, so that is our envelope accordion. And see how nice and uniform they are? Because of measuring and doing it that way. All right, now we'll make our cover. So to make the cover, I used cardboard. I get these 12 by 12 cardboard pieces when I get my Creative Memories cardstock. It comes with these, and some other things come with this too, so I have a stockpile of these. If you don't have these, you could use chipboard, which would be really thick, but you could use chipboard. You could use cereal boxes, things like that, but anything you want it tougher than cardstock. Okay, so what I did then is I knew, like I said, with my template, that it was basically going to start out, that's my inner one. You don't need the inner one yet. my outer template. So we know that we wanted it 10 inches that way and 5.5 this way. That way, what I did is I cut the chipboard or the cardboard down to 10 by 5.5 pieces, 2 of those. And the reason I did that is because then I used my scissors to cut the rest of the shape, and I didn't want to have to cut the whole thing out with my scissors. My fingers would have been really sore. I used my heavy-duty guillotine for this, but my guillotine isn't, I don't have the precision. I can't see where the blade is to get an angle with it. My old one I can, but with this heavy-duty one I can't. So the way around that is then I just went ahead and drew the template onto this, and then I cut out the edges. That's the only thing I had to cut then. And you can, if you're using your cereal box, you're not going to have any trouble cutting that, so you wouldn't even need the guillotine part. So our template should fit on there, and then we're going to draw where we want to cut. Oops. So that's going to be our cover. One of our covers, front or back, doesn't matter, same size. And then I was able to cut, like I said, with my scissors, but again, I wouldn't want to cut, I want to cut as little as possible. Okay, so there's one of our covers, one part of one of our covers. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this one. So we got our front and back cover. And now I'll go get my spare pieces because that's what I made the spine out of. Here are some of my scraps, and it would be my lucky day if this is just the right size, wouldn't it? I don't know if that'll happen. It looks like it's a little bit too wide, maybe. So we know it's the same. Oh, look at that. Woohoo! Of course, it doesn't help you any, but what you would do is measure this, not measure that, I'm sorry. You won't have that yet. Measure the bottom of your envelopes, and then that's the size you want to make it with a little bit of breathing room. So I did make that a little bit bigger than what they are. Okay. Yeah, give it a little bit of space. So mine, if you do it exactly like mine, this one turned out to be, there's my phone. So it's actually, like we said, half and then an eighth past the half. And then we need to make sure of what width we need. I mean width. Yeah, width, because that's basically, that's kind of the width. We need the length. So the length is going to be, and we want to make sure it ends where this bottom ends. So that is 7 1/4. Yep, 7 1/4. So we'll just measure that on here, and that'll be really simple to cut. The other thing you could do is you could just take the bottom, because we know we want it to be the same size as that bottom. You could just take that and draw your line from there. That'll kind of make life simpler, wouldn't it? Okay, so let's just cut this. Now we're going to cover it. And I used yellow cardstock, and that's what I'm going to use on all of these, but you could use any color cardstock you wanted for your cover. What I did is I took a piece, and I measured this out, so you could measure it out, you know, before, if you're doing a different size. But what I did is I laid these out, And then I figured out what size cardstock I needed. Because normally when you're making a cover, if you've made any mini album covers, you know that you typically have to glue two 12 by 12s together, or at least part of, you know, a 12 by 12 and part of another one. So that's what I did with this, is I glued together a 12 by 12 and then a 3 by 12. So I gave it 3 extra inches, and that seemed to work out, because this is what you want right here, this kind of layout, a little bit of space in there, and this is how we're going to put that together. So I'm going to get 2 pieces of yellow cardstock and do the 12 by 12 and the 3 by 12, and then I'll show you how I glue them together to get this started. I have a 12 by 12 and a 3 by 12, and I'm going to mold them or meld them together, and then that's going to give us enough. And I don't like to waste, so I try to do the smallest amount as possible, and they'll overlap a little bit. Let me get my glue. So I'm just going to run a bead of glue down here. And then put them together. And we're going to have a seam. Obviously, we're going to have a seam there, but it's going to be covered up with paper anyway. Okay. So now let's put our pieces back, and we want about that much room at the top. And then we'll put our spine in. Give a little bit of a space there for the spine. There we go, a little bit closer. Oop. Is that one not straight maybe? There we go. Don't need too terribly big of a space, but about like that. And then about like that. And we got more on this side. Let's move this one up a little bit. I mean, it's obviously not a perfect science. It's handmade, but get it as close as possible. Got our little gap there. And our little gap there. Yep, so that looks pretty good. That's about how we want it. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to glue the pieces down, and then we'll cut this to make it easier to fold everything in and put them down. So let's go ahead. I just use regular, for this part, I just go ahead and use regular glue. I've got my, for today, for some reason I'm using my zip dry. I have Beacon 3-in-1 as well. This just dries a little faster, which is kind of good, especially with making a video. We'll just go around the edges here, and then in the middle, you want to get it good and glued down. So for this part I use glue, and then for putting the papers down I actually use double-sided paper tape. So I don't know why I said paper tape. Double-sided tape. It's not paper tape. Well, when I was working as a nurse, we used paper tape a lot. That's probably where that came from. Somewhere in the halls of my memory, because I am retired now. I love paper tape, though. I used to go home with a bunch of it in my pockets. Okay. Put that down. I don't know why I flipped that over. It really doesn't matter. It's all the same. And then this is our spine. Put that down. That. I'm not going to press down. I'm going to let that dry a little bit before I press too much on it. It might move too much. And we got this other piece. One will be our back and one will be our front cover. Yep, see what I mean? It's still not dry enough to press down on. Okay, so let's give that a minute to dry. And in the meantime, we can start, before we start pressing down on them, we can start drawing where we want to cut. So this is pretty much the size I want to fold over here. We will have to miter the corners, but for this, we want to come in and get this shape, but we don't want to go too close. I mean, we want to still have, this is probably what, 1.5 inches? Yep, 1.5 inches. So, you know, we want to give ourselves about, you know, 1.5 inches around here too. So what I do is, and this is what I did, you know, for the others that I've made so far, is I go to the corner and then I try to mimic this angle, but I want to make sure I give myself enough room there so I have enough material, paper in this case, to fold over. And that's the other thing. You could do this with fabric as well. You could cover it with fabric. No reason you couldn't. But I'm just using cardstock in this example. So I don't want to go too close. We'll go about like that, and we'll draw our line. We'll stop there because we want to go ahead and straighten out for the spine. And so we'll draw us a little straight line for the spine, and then we'll try to mimic that angle as much as possible on this side. Let's make sure we don't, okay. Okay, so that's about right. I mean, that gives us, you know, it's not quite 1.5 inches. I'm 1.5 inches. What was I saying? It wasn't 1 inch. Was it 1.5 inches? It was about 3/4 of an inch. Wait a minute, what is it? No, inch. It was about 1 inch. So it was about 1 inch on this side. So maybe we need to back out a little bit more. I just want to make sure we give ourselves enough room for cutting. So we'll do the outer. You know, I'd rather have too much than not enough. So I'm going to do a second line, and I'm going to use that outer line instead. I have done these before, and I cheat myself out of material, and then it's like, well, I could have gone a little bit wider and had enough then for folding in. So we'll cut that one, and then we can flip it over and use it for the other side. And I think they're getting pretty glued down there. Yep. We can touch them now and they're not moving all over the place. I feel like they're pretty attached there. So, it's fighting me. We're going to do the outer line. You always go in more. You can always cut more. You can't add. Well, I guess you could if you try to like doctor it up if you had to, but okay. So now we're going to take this piece and we are going to go over here, and that's about where we want to cut that as well. So we'll just take our pencil. That's the thing, when you get down to that end, it's okay. Okay, so then that's our line. I can follow that. Now on this, so back to where our little spine is, we are going to want to, still want to pick up from here. All right, we're going to want to cut into that toward the spine. Like this. Give it a little bit of leeway. And then we're going to cut like little corners out. See what I mean? Little triangles. So we're going to cut that little triangle out like that. Same thing here. Went a little further that time, didn't I? Okay, I still think it's going to be okay. All right, so that's what we've got going on this side. And then this side, we're going to go ahead cut that same way. Okay, and then we'll make our little piece here. So all we're doing is just cutting out those little triangles so that we can more easily. All right, I need my little scissors. So that we can more easily fold that into the spine. Usually I can just pull them off. They don't want to cooperate today. Okay. All right, so now we're going to miter our corners. Don't need those anymore. And I use this now, with this being, you know, kind of, you know, at an angle and everything. It doesn't line up perfectly, but it'll still give us where our miter line should be. Now, if you don't have a mitering tool, that's okay. You're going to want to cut your corners, but you don't want to come all the way up to the point, or that could show through. And you don't want to go back too far, or you end up with too much material or cardstock or whatever you're using, and it bunches up. So then you have too much. So that's just kind of like a rule of thumb, is that you want to get, you know, as close without going too close. So we're at an angle, so this doesn't match up exactly because it's not square. There we go. We could even do it that way. That might be a little bit more balanced. Yeah, that's probably what I should have done all the way around. Okay, so then we'll go ahead and cut our little corners off. Just keeps us from having too much cardstock that'll bunch up. All right, so we want to start folding, and I did, and I meant to do that with this one, and I guess whenever you're filming, I kind of forgot. So I saw, you know how whenever you fold, you know, over on things like this with cardstock, and sometimes it looks like it's going to tear on the edges. Well, I saw a video where she showed how every paper has, now that folds real easy, that gives me a little bit of resistance. So every paper has its way, the fibers are, that it wants to fold. No, very little resistance here, more resistance here. So we would want to fold it this way with the less resistance, and then we won't get that kind of crinkling or where it looks like it's wrinkling up. And I thought that was great advice. Of course, I didn't follow it. I will next time. I had actually forgotten about it. So we're just going to get everything, make sure it's malleable here, and it will fold over. And then we're going to put our little double-sided sticky tape on it. Just work with it, especially where, you know, you've got your joint there. That's where we had to kind of join them together. And this is vinyl. I guess you hear that. That's my mat. My mat that I work on. It's got lots of glue and stuff on it. All right, so let me get... So for the larger parts, I definitely want to use the 1/2 inch sticky tape. And you could always use some glue too. So you could put your sticky tape down, and then if you feel like there's too much of a gap, you could put some glue down as well. And sometimes I'll do that, especially on the inside. In other words, where it's closer to our book. Okay. I think this 1/2 inch might work on all of it though. I'm just kind of putting it in the center there. A little piece on here. Might be better off to put it actually on the cardboard. And we're going to be covering this also with, you know, cardstock. So I'm not worried about that being sticky past that. Okay, so again, I might run a little bit of glue, just, these look pretty good. Just run some glue down here. It'll come out. Uh-oh, maybe not. There we go. And down here, we could put a little bit there. We want this to last. Not much room there. Okay. And I think I'm going to cut, there's looks like a little bit of a corner here. Could come up. All right, and so then we'll just take off our backing one at a time. And for these, I want to try to, well, you know what, really, I'll probably want to put the side down first, and I'll show you then. I want to fold in that corner so that it doesn't bunch up. Okay. And then just kind of, you can take your bone folder. I got a knot of glue there. I don't know where that came from. Okay, so just take your bone folder and kind of crease that corner. And then let's do this side too. I get discombobulated when I'm filming versus just doing it on your own, you know. Okay, so then we're going to put this in. And then again, do your little corners here. Fold those in so we don't have all that. And we're going to be covering this. I don't know how that got that little bubble there, but we're going to be covering this with cardstock as well. Okay. Crystal. Oh, it's Electra. Oh no, what you doing? Do our sides here. See, this is much smoother where we didn't have we had to make that joint on the other one, so this one's much smoother. But it can't be helped. I needed bigger than 12 by 12. So just kind of get your little corners in there. There we go. All right. So this is the beginning of our cover. So this is what we've got. Okay, got glue everywhere. So now we're going to do our inner. Remember there was an inner template? So your inner template is just going to be slightly smaller than your outer because you want it to fit on over here. And then we're going to do cardstock for this, and then we're still going to be putting designer paper down as well. So what I do is I just go ahead and get my cardstock and cut it to this. We'll do that now. Oh gosh, I apologize if that last segment was darker than usual. I didn't realize I didn't have my overhead light on. I had taken a break, and then when I came back, I forgot to turn that back on. All right, so this is our inner template, and it's 9.5 by 5.5 is our paper. And then we're going to just draw this and cut that out. Oops. Maybe. Okay, so then, and actually, I'm just going to put them both together because they're mirror images of each other. And we're going to cut this. And then cut this side. And then that's going to cover our pieces here. And there. That pencil line, I don't want the pencil line showing. There we go. And then I have my other piece, which I don't know how I lucked out, but it was already the right width, but it needed to be 1/2 and a little bit over, and then 7 1/4 long. So we're going to go ahead and cover all of this up. We're just going to put glue on here. Once we find our glue again. Go ahead and put our glue on. There we go. That's that inside done. We could go ahead and put our spine cover on. And you don't want this to go over because it kind of catches, if you know what I mean, whenever you close it. Okay. We'll put this one on. So that's our cover to this point. Again, I don't know what I'm picking up on here, but I don't like it. Okay. Now, so that's our cover to this point. We want to put on our designer paper on the front and on the inside, because then we're going to make our holes to put our handles on. I want to show you what I use for handles, and I just simply lucked out. I went over to the local Dollar General and I saw this. Here they are. So they had these macrame plant hangers, $3 each, and they're small. So I was like, well, I wonder if that would work. And I came home and I tried it and it worked, and I went and bought the rest that they had. So this is what it was. And I cut 2 of them off, and now I'm going to cut these 2 off. And I used this for handles because I kept picturing crocheted handles. If you crochet, you can make your own handles. If not, you can make handles out of cardstock. You would just make, you know, like you measure out how far you want it to hoop, and then you put brads through it the same way we're going to. You would do everything the same as we're going to, but you would just use cardstock instead of some type of fabric. The other thing is you could just use fabric, right? You'd have to finish the edges. You wouldn't want the edges just fraying, but that's what I liked about this, is I could just have these hanging, and I actually cut them shorter. As you can tell, like I cut them, they were way too long. I gave them a haircut. And then I just used brads so that they would swivel, so you can swivel it up and down. So that's what I used. Again, you could use cardstock, you could use fabric, you could use crocheted, and just whatever length you wanted. This is what I used, and we do need to cover them. I don't know why I'm going through all this yet, because we have to cover these first, and then we'll do it. I'll go ahead and keep them long, and then we'll cut them once we put them on. But that's all I did, is I cut this thing up and got those for my handles. So I was so glad I saw them over there, and then I went and I bought them out. I don't know that, you know, Dollar General, they probably did not get any more in. All right, now what we want to do is we're going to use our inner template, and we're going to cut what we want for our cover. And of course we're going to cover this and this, the front and the back, and then we're going to cover the inside. We're not going to worry about this, but we're going to cover the inside. And this is what I used. I just thought the stripes in this paper pack, I just thought those stripes really look like a beach bag. So that's what I used. And then I used the purple on the inside. So the stripes on the outside and the purple on the inside. You would not have to cover the inside if you didn't want to, but I wanted to. Anyway, I'll go ahead and cut those pieces. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them to the 9.5 by 5.5, and then we'll use our template to get the angles that we want. I've cut my pieces to the 9.5 by 5.5, and then I like my stripes going up and down. You could do it that way just as well. I think it kind of elongates it some, but I can cut them both at once, and then just put the template on. Make sure they're both going the same way. They should be. Yeah, they have to be. Yeah, the way I cut it. And then put this on here. We want to draw on the back. And Creative Memories now have these little inks and brushes. The brushes are for like if you're going to use a stencil or do more of an all around. I just want to do a little bit on the edges, so I am going to use, and these colors match the papers, the summer papers. There's what is it, plum and dandelion and tangelo. But I'm just going to use my daubers, my little finger things I use here. I love these. You can get them on Amazon, fairly cheap. And so then I just want to go around the edges a little bit to give it some definition. I forgot to do that on my sample one. I had done it on my prototype, but then I made a neater and a nicer sample. I forgot to go around the edges on that. Okay, I guess we could speed that up, can't we?
Storms on the roof, secrets whispered, bulletproof. We build worlds out of steel. Now they're...
I just think that gives it some nice definition, especially when you lay it then against the cover. Now what I like to do for my cover pieces is I take my repositional tape. You could take the permanent tape too, but I think I want this one on the front. We're gonna make this our front now. Not that it matters, it's all the same. But I take my repositional tape and put it down in some different, oops, does that mean I'm out? I don't know, let's see, it must be out. I was just thinking about all the use I got out of that one, but yeah, looks like I'm about out. So anyway, I use that, and then I go around with, I can use my Beacon Zip Dry, but I also have my Bearly Art one. Let me grab that one. I like the precision tip on the Bearly Art one, and then it dries really nice and clear. So I just go around, and I want to make sure I get the borders and the corners really well. And then that way you don't have to put glue all over, and you don't have to go crazy with the repositional. They each serve their purpose. So we're going to go ahead and put this on. We'll have a little bit of an edge around, which is what we want. So, like so. Okay, and you can even open it up if you want to press more. And then we're going to put our other one on this side. Yep, I got to get another repositional, don't I? Okay. And then go just around the corners and the borders. And leave us a little edge. I do think it's easier to see this way where we're at. Can open it up to press it down. Now I see I need to clip a couple edges here from my corners. Let's clean that up a little bit. Does not want to cooperate that way. There we go. Well, okay. So now we're going to do the inside. And again, I'm going to leave, this can stay yellow and yellow there. The inside, I did purple for this last one, which is the back of this sheet. These are just such fun paper. So I used the purple. Isn't that gorgeous? And I know it's just on the inside, but look how nice it looks. See how nice that ends up looking on the inside? So I'm going to cut this at the 9.5 by 5.5 and then make our shape and put it down the same way we just did. Now that's this part of the cover done. What we want to do next is take our template. Now I used my template and then I poked the holes through the template and where I wanted it on the cover. Then that way I can keep repeating it. So this one I messed up a little bit, and I know it's the upper part that I want. So what I used is I used my awl. You can use anything that you need to poke a hole. You probably through the cardboard could use a hole punch. You could use, if you have a crocodile, or if you have an awl, or even if you have anything sharp that you can make a hole with. So we're going to go ahead. This is where we're going to put our brads through to put our handle on. And I learned from the other one, I got to go in pretty far. Now, the way the awls work is, you know, of course they start out narrow and sharp and then they get wider. And that's dependent upon how wide you want your hole. So I learned with these is for this brad, I did need to have it a little wider, so I went pretty far. Okay, and then you can always test it. You can put your brads through it and make sure it's going to fit before you go assembling. I did not, so what I did is I attached my envelopes. We're going to attach our envelopes before we put our brads through, but we wanted to make this much of the hole first because of having to go through so far. We didn't want to have to poke through all of our envelopes that much. So once we put our envelopes in, we are going to have to poke that first one, a little hole through the first one, but we're not going to go that far into it. And then we're going to put our template on the back, and we are going to do the same thing. And just go all the way through as far as I'm going about 3/4. Did I do that right? Yeah, about 3/4 of the way with the awl. And like I said, if I need to make it a little bit wider, I will. I'm going to get my brads and test it now before we put our envelopes on. I use these assortments of colored brads. They match these papers pretty well because we've got like a green. That green might not be the exact one, but we got purples. So there's 2 purple ones and a pink one. So they match pretty well. We've got yellow. I could use orange, but we'll go ahead and use the pink and the purple. And then what you want to do is make sure that your brad is going to be able to go all the way through. That's the first thing. I'll put, I mean, these mix and match so well, you wouldn't even have to have all, you could do 4 different colors really with the brads. Okay, that one's going through really well. But we don't want to like get it completely down yet because we want to put our little rope on, but we also need to attach our envelopes because the brad is going to go through the first layer of the first, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, the first layer of the envelope there, the brad needs to go through. But we just want to now test that they are going to fit, because if not, we want to stick our awl through further. And you don't want to, once you have this in, you don't want to stick it through all your envelopes, you know, or you don't want to stick it in too far. So go ahead and just test them all out, see if you need to take your awl and widen any more, which I think I'm going to have to with this one. So yeah, I'm going to have to widen that one a little bit more. And as I've shown before, the reason they're shaped like this is because the further back you go, the larger the hole you're going to get. So this one needs to just be widened a little bit, so we're going to go in further with it. There we go. So that should be good. Let's test that out. And these brads aren't, I've noticed, aren't the sturdiest. I bought them in bulk. from Amazon, so they weren't that much. There we go. That one works. And yes, my voice, we have so much pollen here. It hasn't rained in forever, so the pollen's just hanging around and it's affecting my voice. I can feel it too. Okay, that one works. Looks like this one's going to work just by looking at it. Yep, okay. There we go. So now we'll go ahead and we'll make this one the front. We'll go ahead and put our, I've done it different ways. I've done it where I had it, I went ahead and put it on here the way I wanted it, pulled off the tape and then shut that, but I found that doesn't work well with your spine. So I think it's better to go ahead and put it on this side, you know, just go ahead and secure it down on the side you're taking the tape off on, if that makes sense. Instead of putting it here, taking the tape off and flapping that over, you want to take the tape off and put it directly down on the side you want it on. And of course, make sure you've got your top that's going to open, because we want that to be at the top. You'll be surprised at things that can happen because I've done them all. And then you get it together and you got to figure out a solution. I don't always use my awl for this, but it works, so might as well. This might make my awl too sticky. How's the pollen levels and allergens in your area? Because I know it's really bad here. Everybody's suffering, it seems. I try to avoid taking Sudafed, but I've had to go get the heavy-duty stuff, the stuff behind the pharmacy counter, the real Sudafed. Okay, so now we are going to put this, we want it to reach the bottom, and then we want to have it even, of course, on each side. Oops. I'm going to do it, turn it this way. Might be able to see better that way. So, I want it to come all the way down to that fold. There we go. Yep, that looks pretty good. Okay, and then we'll take this off, and then we'll close it over because we've already got it secured on here where we want it. And then make sure we get our spine. You want that to go, the bottom to go up against your spine. And then just go ahead and adhere that down. Voila, we've got our accordion. So now, like I said, we want to take the awl through just our first envelope there. So that's my pink one. I'm going to go ahead and just poke a little hole there, which doesn't take much because it's just paper envelopes. Not like trying to go through the cardboard. Same thing over here. We want to go on our last one on the back. No, and I'm going through too as I'm saying that. Should have gone ahead and opened that up. It doesn't hurt anything. I mean, you're not even going to see it because you're not going to see the insides of the envelopes. There we go. Okay. So I need to cut the other. Remember, I cut this one, and we're actually going to give it a haircut too after we put it on. And then I've got this one to cut yet. And again, you can get creative with what you use for the handles. You could use cardstock, you could use burlap, you could use just yarn. If you crochet, you could crochet a piece. That would be really cool. but you know, you can just use your imagination. You can really, if you have old handbags and they have 2 straps, you could take the straps off that. You might have to cut them down, might have to finish the edges, but still that should work too. Anything you get, you know, from a thrift shop, that would work. So once you have your piece you want to use, you want to secure it with your brad, because your brad's going to not only hold it on here, it's also going to allow it to swivel so that you can put the handles down. They want to fly all over the place. So then just put this through here. And I have on a couple of them, I went and put it through 2 of the envelopes. That won't work because it won't open right. So there we go, we got our first one down. And then we'll put this front one on, then we'll go to the back. And you could use blinged up. I mean, depending on what your project is, you could use some bling brads. I was even thinking about doing one of these for my mother, and with more floral patterns, and then using like a strand of pearls for the handle and putting some bling type brads on that. Wouldn't that look cool? I think it would. Let me make a little place here where I could put my brad through. More in the center. This is tighter knit than the other one was. There we go. If you don't have an awl, you could use your scissors to poke through. Here we go. Go. Both of our pieces down. Flanges, I guess they would be, wouldn't they? Arms. Sometimes you have to split them up. They don't want to split up on these brads. Okay, front done.
Something we feel, it's so nice to get away, just for a moment, just for a day. We can drive past the signs, over the borders of our mind, 'cause today's a beautiful day. Why would anyone take that away? Can we stay? Let's just stay. It's a beautiful.
So now, just cut these pieces here off. Okay. Look like they might be a little bit, these might be a little bit longer. Just ever so slightly. Maybe if I take those off, it'll even it up more. Okay, so then all you're gonna do, now that you've got this much, you've got your base. And this is what my students are gonna get in class. So they'll have the base here. And then the next thing to do is you're gonna decorate your cover. And then you're going to take these panels, and you need 10 of these panels. That, well, they're like mats, photo mat, I should say, instead of panel, but you know, same thing. And that is going to be so that it fits down in your envelope. You want this about, it's like 1/8 shy of 7 inches. So just down from 7 inches. Because you remember our envelopes are a little bit wider than 7, but we want to make sure it slides down in easily, especially once we start decorating and putting things on it. And then this, it's about 5 and 1/8, 5 1/8 high. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to cut your panels, 10 of these, and then you're going to decorate them. And for this, I use tags, so you can put some kind of tag in there as well. And then in each one of these, you're going to have your pieces that I showed in the walkthrough. I used Creative Memories punch to punch this out to have tabs sticking up, because it's nice to have tabs sticking up, and then you can put ribbon on it so that, you know, everybody can see there's a panel in there, a photo mat in there to pull out. And then I made these all, so I've got, you know, got them in slanted order so that they stack like that. So anyway, that would be it. That's all you need to do, and you have this fun little beach bag.